for joining. Before I get started, does anybody have any Figma questions that they'd like me to address or talk about? Today's topic has been using components and libraries in Figma. Figma actually just recently updated a few things in components and libraries. I'm actually going to check to see if they're still live. No, they've one of the features had to get rolled back for a day because there was a weird issue, but hopefully it'll come back tomorrow. We just launched some of those updates. Some of those updates being just giving the ability to easily browse your libraries and then also see the number of variants that you may have. So yeah, I can probably just show off some of that stuff. Or I could just go through my questions. So let me know if anybody has any questions. Let's see. I had a bunch of questions for my workshop today. Let's see. Once the component is being created, let's see. We were talking about components and component creation. One of the things that we started digging into was kind of like creating variants and using component properties. And I was doing a really terrible example with this avatar. One of the main examples being here, I actually pulled in some um, oh, that's why that did that. I'd pulled in some variant sets that we actually have internal here in Figma. So we have these variant sets with like the Figma icon and the avatar. And what's interesting is that like working with folks and using these libraries, they oftentimes don't really know how best to use them. So the way that these logos manifest in the assets panel just come out like this, and then, oh, you want a different version of this logo. You just come over here and you could change it from full color to black to white. And then we even have here like a bit of a description on how that works. So one of the ways that, in presentations, we're always using these cursors, and folks like quickly need these cursors. And the brand team has made them like really nice and easy to use. So when you select them, you could choose the color. So you got blue, you got yellow. You could change the arrow wherever that goes. You can change the stroke from white to black, and you can just type in the name. So I could be like Miggi, press enter, and that's a component property, and then that just updates right there. So we were just kind of demonstrating how they kind of created that within the component sets. So I think what I'm going to do, unless people have questions, I'm actually going to show an example of one of the ways that I like to make tooltips. I feel like people are always asking me, how to make tooltips, and I think I might just take the opportunity to make tooltips, and then make it with variables. Let's make it with variables, and let's make a tooltip with like a different mode, right? So let's say tooltip. So in order to make the tooltips, I'm going to make them auto layout. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, basically a tooltip kind of looks like this. So let's say I get a little triangle, right? And sometimes when folks are making tooltips, you want the little triangle either on the bottom, you want it on the right, you want it on the top, and oh my God, thank you. Wow, legitimate trademark. They use my tooltip from forever ago on Twitter and use that in the system now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So something like that. I think like what I want to do is I'm going to go through the process of building that. I'm going to do the perfect stroke on it. Use some absolute positioning and some auto layouts. So we could throw some text in there, and then what we're going to do is let's apply some variables and modes to kind of get those some different looks. So yeah, let's start it off. Let's drop in some text. I'm gonna press the T key. Let's draw out a little bit of text. So I'm gonna say this is my tool tip text. So we're just gonna start from the text first. Think about how that's gonna be formatted. Hey Alex, how's it going? Alex is my coworker, my colleague. Um, oh, I got first time chat. I'm gonna go through this tooltip thing. Any best practices on how to set up a bottom nav bar on mobile? That's actually a great question. Here, I'm gonna take this question. I'm gonna drop it over here, and then I'm gonna start to kind of dig into that. I'm gonna cover the tooltip thing just right now because it's gonna allow me to kind of quickly touch upon some of the variable stuff, and then I can like head on over to that. Cool. So here what I'm going to do with the with the tooltip, I'm actually going to start with the text, right? And then with this text, let's center it out for now. So here on the right, let me make my window a little bit bigger. I'm going to align the text to the center, align it to the center this way. And here I'm going to set auto height. So I think the thing about text fields is that folks often neglect, um, how to align these things properly. They're not oftentimes thinking about it. So like as I put in my text, I want this to grow. We want a better line height for that. So I have 24. I'm going to use values of 8. So either 24 over 28 or 24 over 32. If you are a percentage or M person, you could also put in a percentage. So I could say, 125%. So I'm going to use that as my line height. Now I'm going to press Shift A. Shift A is going to put this inside of a frame. So you see over here, this is my auto layout frame. You could tell the auto layout frame by the icon that shows up here to the left. And you can see that this is kind of growing left to right. But really what we want here is we want to get, like the fill. And we also want to throw in some padding. So the padding options are over here to the right. One thing that I like to do with the padding, I command click so I can change all of the padding at once. Or if you're on Windows, control click, it'll allow you to change all of that padding at once. So we're going to set that all padding, let's say a value of 24. So it's 24, on all sides. So this is like the beginning of the tooltip. The next thing that I want to do is, I want to kind of like grow this text. And I really want to work with it. But I'm going to run into some issues, right? So what I can do is I'm going to do this probably the bad way first, and then we're going to do this the right way. I'm going to press paste. So I'm able to put a little triangle in here, right? I have my little triangle nub. I can make this nub a little bit better. So let's go over here, draw a little triangle. I'm going to press Command E. That's going to flatten it so it doesn't have the extra padding. That extra padding is optical alignment, so it can be more properly centered. But I'm going to press Command E to flatten it. You can also right click, choose flatten, so it's going to flatten out. Let's rotate that a little bit, and I'm going to hit the I key, and let's drop it in. So you'll see that it's in here, and you're like, yo, Mig, I lost track of it. Press Shift O. Shift O is going to be outline mode. It's going to tell you exactly where that is. And so here, this is going to be absolute position. So absolute position is going to be on the kind of like sizing panel. It's going to be, the option is going to be on the object when you select it, when it's inside of the auto layout frame. If I take it out, you'll see it disappear. So I need to move it in here. You'll see it over here in the top right. So, so now I can click absolute position, right? And now this is absolutely positioned relative to the left and the top. So in the last workshop, we were talking about constraints. Constraints really matter a lot in terms of how you arrange things. So like if I was to bring this here, I could also choose like align center and align bottom, and you'll see that it automatically updates my constraints. It's a little detail that I like a lot. So if I align it to the top, it's going to change to the top constraint. But here I want it to the bottom, and I'm just going to move this down. Okay. All right, so what's cool about this is as I type, right, that little tooltip is going to follow and be everywhere, like I need it to be, right? And I can even select this frame and I could round out those corners a little bit. Let's say about a value of 8. So here, as I type this out and I press return, our little tooltip grows. Okay, so we have our fun little tooltip. So what I can do next is I can make this into a component, and I can call this tooltip, component option being up here, and I'll just say, text, right? And even if I want to, I can kind of like begin to, let me make a little adjustment on that. Sometimes that's actually better for these. Here, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to make this its own component. Let's Let's see. Oh, it's still inside. Hold on. Let me bring it out and paste it out. I'm going to make it its own component. I'm going to call this nub. So if I want to change it later on, I can. So let's make this nub, let's say 32 by 24. There we go. And let's paste it back in. And we're going to align it to the bottom and the center, and then just kind of move it down. So there we go. So this is our first component. I want to make sure that that nub is inside of tooltip. So there we go, bottom, cross. I'm going to use the arrow keys to move it down. You can even check in this mode to see, how much aligned. So I press Shift O, so it'll let me see where that little separation is there. So here we go, just really super basic tooltip. And then I can click the plus key, right? So then we can have another variant, right? So we have this other variant, and when I click on the variant set, it gives me the opportunity to name that. So I can just say nub. The first one is going to be on the bottom, and this one we get to choose where the nub goes. So in here I can move that, I can rotate it, and I can bring it up to the top. And if these are kind of like starting to cramp your style, like you can always just increase that size and just move this down, just arrange your objects a little bit better. Some people prefer to have their variants in an auto layout frame, but it's tough to work that way in the beginning. So here we go. We have our top nub. So we have our tooltip nub bottom. We have our tooltip nub top. And let's make one more and one more. So now we got 4. This one. And once again, we also want to make sure that its constraints are set properly. So this one, we want it constrained to the center and the top. And this one, we're going to align to the left and to the center. And you'll see left and center. And then just kind of move it with our arrow. Press Shift O. There we go. Our nub is aligned to the left there. Boom. So nub left. And this one, same thing. Let's rotate that to the right. Let's set it to center and right, and then just move it over a bit. Sometimes these little repetitive behaviors, you do a little repetitive thing and helps you understand the concept a little bit better when you're playing around with it. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. We just got to make sure we name these properly, right? So here we go. Our current variant, nub right, and nub left. So bottom, top, right, left. Check the constraints. So here, the constraints on this one are right and center. So now we need to take that for a spin. I'm gonna hold on the Option key, drag it out, and let's double click on this text. And there we go, we're writing, and it's growing. And that's kind of great. It's growing the way that we kind of want it to. Cool. And we could also choose to how this auto layout behaves. Let's see if that works. No, that's about the same. Okay. And then so we have this text here. This is very important text. Hello, my name is, I need to use ChatGPT to come up with some stuff, is Miggi, and I am here on Switch today. Ooh, that's another really good question. I'm going to drag this question. I'm probably going to finish this up quick because we got 2 really good questions over here. All right. Hello, my name is Miggi, and I'm here today on Twitch. Now, if I'm going to switch this out from the bottom, the top, the left, and the right, and then the only thing we're going to do here, just really briefly, because I wanted to kind of cover this topic, but I didn't have an opportunity to, very basic explanation of how variables can work. So here I click on local variables. Let's create a collection. We can just rename this one, and then this will just be, color modes. I'm going to create a variable really quick. Let's create a color variable. And this can be, let's just say bubble BG. I'm not building a whole design system here, so the naming doesn't matter too much. So bubble BG, and then this will be in light mode. And then let's have another variable that will be our, bubble text, and then that can be black. So this is light mode. Let's create another mode, and we could swap those, right? Make it easy. See how that looks. So we have those colors set up, bubble BG, bubble text. And here, what I could do is I can select this tooltip and I can come down to selection colors. And here in selection colors, I can select all of the things, right? All of those things have been selected. Um, and I can go to that fill, and here in libraries, I can choose bubble BG, right? So now all of the objects that were previously white, I got to grab some more objects here really quick, um, are now going to be the, didn't mean to create a new one, are going to be bubble BG, right? So all the nubs and all the backgrounds are that. And then same thing here, I can select all of my text right there and make this all now foreground. So I don't want to create a new variable. I just want to choose bubble text. There we go. So now this component, I can change the mode on the layer panel. So right here, layer, I can change the color modes from light mode to dark mode. Let me make sure I name that properly. I just call this mode, dark mode. Um, so here it's you can see we could right, left, top, but then over here we have the color mode. We could change that to light and dark based off of those variables. But if we set it to auto, any frame that you have, and I love demonstrating this. This is so cool. Any frame that you have can be assigned a mode. So let's say this background fill is using the bubble BG background. Now at the layer, I change that to dark mode. When I take this tooltip here, I actually might need to reverse those. That might actually make sense. So that's actually what I wanted to do. All right, so here this should be dark mode. This is why we do things live on Twitch. Dark mode, this would be light mode. I think I could even drag those around. Can you drag them? Man, they should make these draggable. And then I'm going to just do a background color. Here we go, because I didn't put strokes on them or anything. The background color in dark mode is going to be dark. And the background color in light mode is going to be light. And let's set both of these, instead of bubble BG, this should be background color. And now, voila. And then we can drag this over here, and there it is. And so what it's doing is it's inheriting the properties from each. And then I can go over here and I can change that to left and to right. And if you checked out, let's see, let me hit refresh. I don't know if the new component modal has been like relaunched. Let's see. Nope, hasn't been relaunched yet. That's a bummer. Okay. So yeah, so anyways, I could take these left and right. The cool thing about this is that in dev mode, you can open up a little component playground. And so here I can change in this component playground what this looks like. So let's say if you're handing this off to a developer, you can kind of see the different modes of this. And I can actually change the dark mode and light mode within the component playground of this object. And I can even refresh it, back to its original, or if I can view the original variant itself. So dev mode is pretty rad in that, like, it gives you this little playground to let me kind of like view the tooltip in the different modes and set the nubs and such. Let's hop out of dev mode and let's get to answering other folks' questions. All right, so Letitia asks, are there any best practices on how to set up a bottom nav bar on mobile? Example, before making the nav bar component, do I make each icon a component too? Should the auto layout be applied to each icon, etc.? All right, so that's a great question. So what I would do if you're designing like a bottom nav, so let's say if I have a frame and this frame is like iPhone 14, and we were considering some bottom nav. And I think the way that you're explaining it is it might be bottom nav Let's kind of, you know, just drop this in here and just kind of like rough it out. Wherein there might be like icons. So icons are typically amassed in or set up to be a particular scale. So they might be 24 by 24. Usually you're working with an icon library. So like if I was to draw this icon, let's say you have 48 by 48, that would be representative of your icon. So let's make like a little generic icon here. Let's just do like a little house. Do do do. Let's make that like 2 thickness. And let's center that. And then here I'm just gonna draw in a few more lines. There you go. The wonderful house. All right, let's align it right there and align it right there. And I'm going to select all of my edges. Let's make them rounded. And let's select this edge and that edge. And let's make those also round. There we go. We got a little like Twitter house thing going. All right, and let's make that the same thickness as 2. Okay, so typically when you're designing, you know, you're designing something, you know, your icon might be within the constraints of like 24 pixel size, right? And this would be probably not have a fill, and this would be like house, oops, icon, house, right? And that would be a component. And you would actually have many different icons like all set up. So if I was to just make like another one really quick, let's say 48 by 48, and this one is just like a, here I'll do one more, do a little map icon, and let's make that black and round off that edge and set that to the center, and make that 2. And yeah, I will be sharing this video on my Figma. It'll also be available on Twitch for about 14 days. Here we go. So 2. All right. So let's say I got a second icon. Let's kind of like hide that and just say icon map, right? And ideally make it a component, right? Should be kind of roughly the same thing. This isn't great, but so when you're designing this space, and then actually I'm going to tie this into the second question. Can you explain the basics of an 8-point grid system and how to apply it when laying things out? These icons are arranged in values of 48. If I was to, in this layout, create a grid that I can create an 8-point grid system here, but it's probably not going to match up perfectly. So what I might just start with is like a baseline grid where I set up my rows that are a set from auto from the top with like, let's say a 0 gutter, right? And then each one of these lines, let's make them blue and a bit darker so everybody in the back can see them. Um, each of these lines represent a spacing of 8. So if I was to begin to place an instance of this into this layout, right, I want to consider, did I make this 48 by 48? This is 48 by 48, then that should line up with those icons. Did I not make the grid? Oh, the row is 10 pixels. It needs to be 8. There we go. Okay, so you'll see how these icons now snap in. So I'm answering both questions at the same time. So an icon is kind of like art that's kind of represented by this space because this is going to be its actual hit area. And actually I might want to just like devise this one like up a little bit. Like, yeah, it's fine. So these icons are going to kind of like be in this space. So the question was, if you're beginning to design this, like what are you trying to do? Now you can build this as a component. Um, let's just do, I'm just going to have these 4 here, and I'm going to make this a component, and I'm going to set this component up. I'm holding down the command key while I'm dragging it. and each of these are inside of it. And I'm gonna censor them, and I'm gonna like let's say boop. There we go. Let's align these. Censor vertically, censor horizontally. It's not enough space. Let's get them aligned. Let's give this some color, right? So we can kind of see what we're doing there. Let's give those some color so we can kind of see what we're doing there. And as you're thinking about how you're aligning these in your space, so you're going to want this whole thing as its own component. And then you're thinking, well, what about these kind of like subcomponents, right? So what you can do is when you create this, like as a main component, and here we have the instances, you can actually swap out that instance for another icon. So here I can go from icon house to icon map, right? And if actually I design this correctly, so if I make each of these, if I bring this all together into one unified object, and I bring this all together as one unified object, I use the Pathfinder tool. Let's say if I make them all white, now when I select this, I switch to the map and the map will also retain that color. So what I'm doing is I'm swapping the instance. So it's going to be a property of this component that I can swap those instances out. So typically what people have is they have an entire icon library, right? And so like here, right, I can click on this instance inside of this component, and I can swap them out for all maps. If I go to the main one here, let's just align them, tidy them up. Let's get them centered. So then if I wanted to swap this out, I would have a whole library of these, and then I can then swap those instances. So let's say if I swap these all for houses, so you imagine you devise each of your icons at their respective sizes. You create those consistent bounding boxes, those consistent frames for them, then allows you to swap them out. Does that help? Is Letitia still here? No. Okay. All right. So basically that's how that's going to work. And even when you're designing this like component, you could actually create what is known as an instance swap property, and give that like a name. So, this could be like the first slot in that menu. So if you find yourself changing that regularly or updating it, like I can call this like home, and then this is the basic value for it. And then I can even choose preferred values to come up to the top when changing that out. So let's say if there's many different flavors of this home menu that changes across your screens that are going to then make use of various icons that you're regularly going to use, then you can have an instant swap property. So now here, when I select this, you'll see this property that I can easily swap between those two. And that way I don't need to go inside of the component searching for that instance and then performing that instance swap. This allows me, and I'll show you that one more time. So let's say we have this first one that has an instance swap property on the component definition. This one too, we can do the same thing and we can create a new property. And then this one can be, map. This is the default, and then we can add another preferred value to be one of the other icons that we have. Then once that property is created, when I come over here, I can easily swap between those styles. So, let's say, for instance, we had another version of this, which is like a filled in version. We can either swap that variant or swap that style or swap it for a different icon. Cool. All right, and yes, yeah, the video will be shared. The video is going to be available on Twitch for about 14 days, and I'll be sharing it on my personal YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/Miggi, what is it? At Miggi from Figgi. I've been sharing all of my homework hotline live streams up on YouTube. That's an ad. That's not me, but yeah, you can see those there. So yeah, my live streams will be shared here. Hold on, I have to paste chat. There it goes. Okay. All right, cool. So I also had a question about the 8-point grid system. So when you're designing in the 8-point grid system, fundamentally, you're just thinking of things as being like units and blocks that kind of fit into these sizes. So here, let me just draw out another frame. Let me move this component down. So I'm going to draw this other frame. So somebody asked me, what am I doing? I'm answering questions. This is Homework Hotline for Figma. So I'm in Figma Design and I am answering folks' questions that they have. Did I use the phrase Figgi needs Miggi in my job interview? God, I should have. I should have just been like, yo, like Figgi needs Miggi. I think I came up with that after the fact. I professionally rebranded as Miggi because my name is Miguel Cardona. And if the person this other guy also accepted a job on the same month that I did. So if you type in Miguel Cardona into Google, you get the current Secretary of Education. Current Secretary of Education. I'm the designer advocate for education at Figma. So you can see that he completely destroyed my search engine optimization. And because he destroyed my search engine optimization, I now just go by, Miggi, and you type in from Figma or Miggi from Figgi, you're gonna get you're actually gonna get all my stuff instead. So it was an intentional choice. Sometimes you got to professionally rebrand. Cool. So really quickly, I was explaining how like 8-point grid system works. Um, Grids in Figma are really nice in that you have a lot of flexibility when you're defining them. What it largely refers to is just how UI elements are being spaced and how they're arranged. So instead of thinking of like 8, 16, 32, you're thinking in blocks of 8. That being said, you can also have that. The way that it comes in most handy is with typography. So let's say here, I'm going to change this to what is known as a baseline grid. And I'm going to make this baseline grid look a little bit easier to consume on this screen. So basically, these lines are kind of driven every 8 pixels or units. So I have 8 height, 8 gutter. The count is auto. And so that's actually a good question. I'll drop that in there in a little bit. So the thing that I want to highlight here with the text is that when we're working with text, hello, this is some text and I am a whole paragraph, yo. The thing about this text is that if you wanted to align, and this is kind of where the concept kind of like really comes from. If you want this alignment in text to be the same across both lines, you'll see that these lines don't actually match up. And this is what's referred to as vertical rhythm. So what I can do is I can change that line height to a value that's divisible by 8. The font size itself doesn't need to be 8, but the line height, as long as that is divisible by 8, you'll see every line of text match up and line up. So even if I were to have larger text, so like let's say 24-point text, as long as its first baseline, let's say 32, its first baseline is aligned, then every line is going to match up. So 32 is divisible by 8, and you'll see that this line and this line is going to match up with this line and this line. Vertical trim on that, yes, you can apply vertical trim. So vertical trim will let me go over here, and let's see, where is it in details now? No, where'd vertical trim go? Did they move it? It was right there. There it is, vertical trim. So vertical trim is just going to kill out just that like a little bit above, a little bit below, and make that text a little bit more crispy to those lines. Cool. So I saw a question. You use an 8 pixel grid system, but the screen sizes aren't compatible. What do you do in case? So I understand what you're saying. So the screen size not being compatible, what you do is you begin to consider what are the flexible regions, right? So if I was to be working on this layout and I'm going to consider columns, and I'll show you some column sets that will work. So I'm going to draw on a frame. Let's make it iPhone 14. And I create columns that I want to serve as my base columns. So let's set 4 columns up. Right now, there's different ways to make a layout responsive, right? Or just to make a layout in general. So right now, with the columns stretching, I could set the gutter to 16, and then I can align the margins to 32, right? So this is pretty strict in that it's saying those margins are 32, those gutters are 16, and then you'll notice that these columns then become values that aren't divisible by 8. Like the column width itself isn't divisible by 8. But this is a common practice that is usually employed by like Google, where they might have a fixed margin, they'll have a fixed gutter, and they'll have columns that stretch. And then this way they're starting to think in a more responsive term. So typically they try to control the heights, but these columns themselves, they're not easily divisible. So it's up to you as the designer to realize, yeah, you're going to be using values of 8. You're going to be designing icons, that are going to be like 24 by 24. You're going to be, working with text that, let's say, hello, this is text that, list text. Right. So this will probably be built out, like as a component, or there's going to be multiple in here. The spacing between them, like the hard rigid spacing is going to be between these kind of like micro elements, but then sometimes the spacing between macro elements might be more flexible or might be more fluid. So it's all about considering what areas are going to be, more fluid. So like even within Figma, within Figma, like if I was to, design a couple boxes, right? I can set those constraints to be left and right, like right here, left and right. And those boxes will constrain to my columns. So if I was to devise something that's a little bit more complex, where I might have text, right? So this is title text. Let's make that bold. Then I have like body text. I need like filler text. I'm just gonna go like that. There we go. So first things first, I need to consider this to be, a text field that's like filling to the text. So it's auto height, and God, I need more spaces between there. That definitely needs more spaces all around. Okay. And let's make that regular. I need to use Chat GPT. Somebody just needs to send me let's see. I'm gonna open up FigJam in another window and ask FigJam GPT. FigJam.new, and get that to give me some text. This is a side quest right now. We're on a side quest. I think that's appropriate for Twitch. Sticky, describe to me how design systems work. And let's use here. I'll share that with y'all so you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. I'm going to use some FigJam GPT. So Jambot. All right, so I'm going to take this and let's draw a line from here to here. And let's say, teach me about this. I'm just getting filler text. I know. All right, here we go. I got some filler text. Isn't there a Fig? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, wait, I could have done this in Figma. I didn't need to do this in FigJam. Okay. I'm like conditioned. You're right. I could just go right here and widget Jambot. Oh, does Jambot not come in here? Jambot? I think Jambot is only for FigJam. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is the one that I used. I used Jambot. Um, all right, so I got some text. Okay. Damn, this no too much text. That's fine. Let's put a title on this. Let's make this 24. And hold on, somebody did join us and ask another question. I want to make sure I copy and paste it. I was hoping to get my question for the webinar answered. I'm just going to throw this in here too while we're talking about responsive stuff. I teach college and I'm currently in 100 plus Figma teams for each of my students. Had to manually drag and drop each of them to get in alphabetical order. Would love something to help educators manage my teams. So one thing that I would recommend if you're working with all of your students, I mean, they don't, that's one, that's a lot of teams, and this is a great use case. And in Lentil Bean, I would actually appreciate if you reach out to me. Lentil Bean, hit me up at miggi@figma.com. I'd love to talk about your use case. But the one thing that I would say is that typically when I'm working with students, what I do is I will create a team and then I have them all have projects within a team. It makes it much more manageable than having to manage all of those Figma teams. I know that that doesn't solve your problem right now, and I know that you're like manually arranging them on the left-hand side. So I'd love to chat and kind of talk about that some more. All right, so back onto this text and making a responsive component. So here, what I can do, I can make this into a component. Let's say I make this auto layout, Shift A, it's in a frame. Let's make that a component. Let's throw in some padding and some padding. Let's make that 24, 24. Let's throw some fill in there. All right, so right now, this frame is set to hug and hug, right? However, what we're going to do is we're going to set that to fixed, and we're going to set the two internal components. So if I select the frame, I press enter, it selects everything inside. We're going to set them to fill container. So what this does is it's going to fill to this container. The vertical resizing of this is still set to hug, but horizontally this is set to fixed. And likewise, the text inside, this needs to be a text box. Yeah, the text inside, there we go. This needs a better line height. Let's say 32. Okay, cool. So this component is designed, right? The text is 24 over 32. This is 16 over, let's say, 24. So we're still using those consistent values, but this width is going to be variable. All right, let's just call this our text component. And a couple other things that we're going to set within this is we might want to set a max width and a min width, and those values are also going to be based off of 8. So here, when I select this text component, I can come over here to width, and then I can add a max width on the component. So I can say, I don't want you going larger than 480. And then I can also add a min width, and I can say, I don't want you going smaller than 360. Right? So I now have a max and a min width. Or I can bring that down lower, let's say 240, right? So I can see the min width, I can see the max width, let's say 560. Set max width, there we go. 560. So I'm setting the max width, the min width, all of those visuals are here. So now when I have an instance of this, let's darken our frame a little bit. When I have an instance of this, I can set its constraints to boop, 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 boop. Oh, can I not set left and right constraints when it has min and max width? That's wild. Wait, let's see. I'm gonna put you in a frame. Let's see. Constraints. No. Huh. I just learned something today. Okay, that's kind of weird. So I'm gonna have to play around with that. I'm gonna have to ask some questions to see if that's the case. Because what I was gonna do is set some constraints on here as left and right, but it's not letting me. And I have a weird feeling it's because we have a min and max width. So I might have to just ask the team if that's the case. Either way, here you can see you design this component to have a minimum, and that minimum is still divisible by 8, and it has a maximum, and that maximum is divisible by 8. And when you scale it down, you see it hits its min, and you see that it hits its max value. Cool. And if I didn't have those constraints on it, let me remove min and max. What I can do is in here, I can set that object and choose left and right, which is now available. And you'll see that it'll grow and it'll constrain back and forth. Yeah, there we go. Ooh, wait, let's see. Maybe it's because it's fixed width. Yeah, it's not because it's fixed width. It's because I applied a max, what is this? Like a min and max, which was just, I didn't think that it would remove those values, which it does, which is kind of weird. But yeah. So basically what you would do in this case, you'll see you have to basically just decide what is going to be your flexible area. In this case, it's going to be a width. And like I said, this column set is created in such a way to stretch. Let me make it a little bit brighter. There we go. Make that like grayscale, a little bit whiter. We're going full noir here in this layout. So yeah, and then what's cool about this is if you have more of these, right, you can auto layout these. Shift A. Let's do 24 pixel spacing between them. You know, and let's set this to left and right. And now, oh no, wait, are you inside of the frame? Here we go. It's like bug bashing time. Oh, I know why. I'm going to press enter and I want to make sure that they're all set to fill container. All right, so this object is fixed. And now they will all go and grow and push down, which is awesome. So these objects themselves, they're all text components. They're inside of, our text column. And they're, they're in there. And if I need to remove a title, I can just delete it from the instance. It just kind of hides it there. But then these are all still, just nice and will be responsive according to that. Now, if you wanted to, you could also make a variant. And let's say the variant is your type is going to be a little bit larger. So let's say, we're going to go 28 point type, 32. Let's go regular. Let's make that title huge. Say 48. Line height of 56. And let's add like spacing between there to be like 24, right? So then what you could do is you could just change that to the second variant and it's bigger. So like sometimes, I mean, there's different practices. Everybody does things like a little bit differently. But sometimes what I might do is I might have like variants according to like breakpoints, where I might have a variant that's like a little bit larger because it still uses the same text. So I can click here, I can click that. It can use the exact same text. I can make this a text component property. So I could say body text and create body text. So then now here, this can be changed, right at the component. So hello, my name is Miggi from Figgi, right? And then it'll just be a component property, and then it can just be like updated right from there. Definitely gaslighted by Figma. I'm sorry about that. So is that also too the left and right constraints baffled always? Also, you're just baffled always. I mean, it's in your name to be kind of baffled by things. What did you make the text fill the container? All right, so I'll show you that one more time. So I'm going to draw a text. Let's paste in some What did I have? I had some Chat GPT text. Let's see there. And so when I have a text field, there's different ways of setting up the text field. The one that I'm going to choose is called auto height. Auto height is going to change the height of the text field. And you'll basically see that the text itself kind of feels responsive. So knowing how you're setting up the type is really important, first and foremost. Next, what the text was doing was it was inside of an auto layout frame. So here, let me just draw another line of text. Yes, my own username decision is my foil. Here, I'm gonna make a little bit of text. So this is title text, and let's set this to bold. And once again, we could just choose that as well. So they're there. I select them both and I press Shift A. By pressing Shift A, it puts them into an auto layout frame, and I can make this a text block. I can give it like a name, text block. So by default, auto layout frames are set to hug. So their resizing is based off of the things that are inside of it. So however wide the widest element inside of the auto layout frame is, that's going to be as wide as the auto layout frame is going to be when it's set to hug, because it's hugging its contents. However, you can set the container to set to fixed width, and that means that you determine the width of that content. But you also need to consider how the inside text field also behaves. So right now that inside text field was already fixed. So we need to change how it behaves. So we want it to fill to the container. And you'll see that once I highlight that, if you look on my window, you see the little dotted arrow showing us how it's going to behave next, right? So when I click fill container, you see that that's now how it's behaving. So to see this auto layout frame, I will press fill, and let's give it some horizontal padding. So say 24 or 24. So now we have the horizontal and vertical padding, and the outside auto layout frame is set to fixed. And so as I scale it down and increase its size, because this element is set to fill, I could also set this one to fill, right? And once it's set to fill, you see it goes to fill that entire container. That informs how it behaves. So with auto layout, you have an auto layout frame, and then you determine how that's behaving, whether it's hugging and filling to the elements that are inside of it, or whether it's defining the width and the height that the elements inside of it are then going to respond to. So it's either responding to, its own internal elements, or the internal elements responding to the external elements. And you need to consider how those work. Okay, here we go. Oh, thank you, Legionel. Thanks. I'm glad you're feeling this too. All right. So how do you grade students on their proficiency on Figma? Do I just grade on the outcome of the prototype or grade the Figma file? So I normally am grading students based off of their their concepts and their outputs and their ability to tell stories versus are they executing something perfectly, right? So I'll go back. I could actually show you work that my students have made. I grade students on their ability to show their ideas. So here, let me see if I type in, let's see, Will. Is his file going to be there? Will McCloskey. Let's see, his file contributions, visual exploration. So, I mean, this is just an example where the students were using Figma to kind of collaborate together to kind of brainstorm ideas. Now they're going to have, and students when working together, they're going to have a ton of areas that are very just brain dumpy, right? And what I usually like to see is how they go from, something like this to further develop their ideas into, something that then is more cohesive. So this is actually a research project that I had worked on with students where we were developing UI for like a company, and they had to put together their final presentation. So the things that I kind of care about most is just like, how is their information design? How is their hierarchy? How are they putting together that presentation? How well are they understanding the concepts? I don't hold them too tightly to the work itself. Because I believe that there's many paths to like really good outcomes. But what was cool is that like, even this, like they're able to construct these like product illustrations in Figma, and develop like a style. So for me, it's usually how are they able to tell the best story with the tools, not necessarily how proficient they are with the tools, because usually they're still getting a hang of it, and they're probably not going to get the best hang of it until they're working in a work setting proper. Um, so I'll even show you Denseglio. So here we go. I can show you like another student I was working with. Oh, thank you. Um, I worked on a lot with. Let's see, where is her? I think I'm gonna have to dig elsewhere. Wait. Trying to remember where some of these files are without just going in through my drafts. I'm gonna have to just go through my drafts. All right, folks, we're going through my drafts on Twitch. All right. So here, I'm just gonna go back. I haven't taught in a while, you can tell. Well, at least on this account. All right. I'm looking for a file that a student shared with me that was like pretty dope. Normally, like these things are collected into the teams, but I know that this one was just kind of like a loose file that they shared with me, so it's probably a copy of it's going to be in my drafts, and I just can't remember the name of it at all. So dig in. I need to clean these out, is what I need to do. This is all getting recorded, isn't it? It absolutely is. All right. I'm gonna assume that it's not here. Oh, getting close, getting close. No. Here, I'm just gonna type in, let's see, cook. I can't remember the thing. It was like a meal. Ah, there it is, Grub Guru. Look at it. I just had to type in search. There we go. So, like this was a student's project. Um, and like they built out wireframes, and they're building out this like kind of like diet planner thing. And this is really early on in Figma. This is before Figma had like a lot of like very advanced features. But what's amazing here is, like I could even see how she like arranged her Behance page for like demonstrating the work. Um, I can see like the like little product illustrations that she made. And then here, being able to see the deck, I think is kind of like just one of the most impactful things. So I'm able to, because there's always going to be like this big mess, but here, this is just kind of like a walkthrough of her like concepts, showing me how she's applying the grid, and laying out her information, explaining the concept of the event calendar. So this is like all of her decks kind of like put together as they kind of develop over time. So for them to like kind of tell the story effectively, for me, is the most important thing. Because I'm at the end of the day, when I'm teaching a class on design, I'm not teaching Figma. I'm either teaching them like how to work with other people, or how to express their ideas the most. Um, do I have Figma course other than Figma education? So right now I don't like, so right now I'm full time with Figma. I'm still technically, if you look me up, RIT Miguel Cardona, I'm still on leave from my position at RIT. So I'm still technically on the roster. I'm still an assistant professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology. You can kind of see some of my credentials there. Um, but currently I'm not teaching any classes like outside of Figma. Currently I'm not teaching any classes like outside of Figma. That was weird. I just went to Twitch and it heard the thing. Um, Brilliant. I think we're coming up on time. Thank you all for joining me. Big shout out to Lieutenant Trademark for being my number one fan. Um, Ooh, it must have inspired you to do such great and detailed work. Yeah, man, like the work that they actually ended up doing is just like out of this world. I mean, some of my former students, the head of design systems at Netflix, was a former student. Head of design at Pinterest was one of our students. The I believe head of systems or one of the design systems designers at Spotify is one of our former students. Um, Actually, another former student I was just talking to the other day works on Apple Podcasts. So we have a pretty good reach from our program. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all for joining me today. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the chat. Thank you for the questions. Hopefully, I've been able to answer them to a way that is beneficial for you all. I will be posting this stream, probably streaming next week too. I might have a special guest. I'm going to bring on Lauren Andres, another designer advocate on the team, and we'll probably just be chatting, like Figma, probably talking about variables and some additional features that are going to be coming out pretty soon. So, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care.